Hey guys, Dissident here. Today I'm here to talk to you about Breach, and why, even though the community and some pros may say he's underpowered or just not as good as other options in the game, that they may be wrong, because I think that he's severely underrated and most people aren't playing him correctly. So, let's talk about it. So the first tier list that I'm going to show you is the most recent tier list that I found on YouTube. This tier list was released about 6 days ago from Game Leap, and it puts Breach at C tier. Let's listen to their reasoning.
Now, in C tier, we have two characters, Breach and Viper. And I know what you're going to say, what the heck, why is Breach in the C tier? But if you look at the pro pick rates on all the recent tournaments, Breach is just seeing a very little amount of play. And yes, every once in a while, T1 will whip it out. Or every once in a while, TSM will whip it out. But Breach, pound for pound, is not winning that many games. He's not doing a better job than any of the other flashers. Like, when you're deciding to pick a Breach, you have to choose not to pick a Phoenix. You have to choose not to pick Raze or Jet or some combination, or double smoke, or Omen. Like, there's so many different cuts that you have to make in a team composition if you're playing a Breach, and Breach is really one-dimensional. He's really easy to react to at a pro level, where you can 180 from his flash is incredibly easy. You can't hide the intro to the flash like you can with Phoenix through smokes. The character is not as versatile as something like Omen, who has flashes and smokes. It is just hard-pressed to choose to pick Breach, and yes, he's great in ranked play, flushing people out of corners and all that sorts of things, punishing enemies for holding too aggressively. But in ranked play, people don't make those mistakes, and they're not as susceptible to those things. And even if they are playing that way, they're playing characters with mobility like Jet that can get out of those cubbies. So Breach is just not really where he needs to be right now. But I do know that there's some buffs down the pipeline, and maybe it will affect his pick right here, get him out of the C tier.
So my takeaway from Game Leap's reasonings is that in order to play Breach on a team, you'd need to get rid of a duelist or go without having double smokes, which you don't really need double smokes anyways, to be perfectly honest. But double smokes, not saying that it's bad, because double smokes can be really good depending on the map, especially on Haven. But that you have to get rid of duelist or potentially go without double smokes. That he's easy to react to and is not a very flexible character at all. One thing that they do point out that he's good at is flushing people out and punishing enemies for playing aggressively. But then they say that usually when you do punish someone for playing aggressively, the character ability will get away. But that's the point of flushing a character out, is to gain that space for your team. So I don't really see where that's a bad thing, or why that's along the same lines of what Raze does, except I feel like it can be much more punishing when Breach does it opposed to Raze. Um, but yeah, I have a couple more points to talk about. I just want to talk about the things that I took away from that clip. The next clip that I'm going to be showing you is pro guides who actually put Breach in a higher tier. They put him in B tier, not C tier. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Rounding off our B tier is none other than the Swede himself, Breach. The main issue with Breach is simply just this meta sucks for him. He is not able to do what he wants to do, which is flash and run in at people, because there are too many operators denying line of sights, and everyone is playing back to play for retakes, so when Breach initiates, there is just no one to stun to force out of position. Breach is still an amazing agent, and we don't think he really needs any buffs. We really just need to see some support come out for dealing with these operators, and more incentive for people to just not play for retakes on defense. Either way, today we will see Breach bringing an end to our B tier.
So as you can see, pro guides didn't really say much about Breach. The way that I felt that they basically said about him, summarizing that, which was already really brief, is he's good, just not in this meta. And the one thing that they did really say that I have to hard disagree with is he can't do what he wants to do, which is flash and run in at people. And the reason why I don't agree with this is because I don't believe the intended purpose that Riot had when creating Breach was to have him be entry. If that was the case, he would be classified as a duelist, not an initiator. And this is where I'm going to make my argument for why Breach should be played as a support character. And I have some clips to back this up later. Lastly, before I get into some clips of my own and I start explaining my reasoning, let's look at Hiko's reasoning for why Breach is B tier.
I think that the first B tier agent though right now is Breach. I actually almost put Breach as A tier, just because I think Breach is still really good. The problem is just the meta, the way the meta is working right now. A lot of teams don't run Breach anymore. He's good. His abilities are still really good. It's just not having. Usually people drop their Breach for Omen or Sova, and just his flashes sometimes are kind of hard to hit, especially in a very heavy op meta. It's hard to push Oppers off with Breach. His flashes are okay, but Oppers just his flashes are pretty bad against Oppers. His ult is really good. His stun is really good still for like supporting. I just think that people would rather have a Raze or a Sova or an Omen over a Breach right now. And I think, like I said, if you check most of the teams, the majority of teams don't run Breach. They don't. I just think that, like I said, I think the meta has changed so much where you just really you need to have so much utility, so many smokes, so many ways to counter Oppers that, you know, Breach is good for stopping rushes. Like I said, I don't think Breach is terrible. I think Breach is really good still. I just think that in the current meta, the way that the teams are playing, Breach is dropping out of meta a little bit. I wouldn't be opposed to putting Breach at as A tier just for his usefulness to a team. But if we're talking about meta, very few teams even play Breach.
So my takeaway from that is almost the same thing the pro guide said. So Hiko pretty much said, in my opinion, or in my interpretation, is that Breach would be A tier except ops. He said that his flashes are really difficult to hit and that his flashes are really weak against ops. His ult and stun are really good. He's really good at stopping rushes, and he can really support his team. And that's the pretty much argument that I'm trying to push anyways, is that Breach is supposed to be a support agent. He's not supposed to be what everyone wants him to be, which is use your concussion and then push somebody that's stunned, or flash somebody and then take a gunfight while they're flashed. You should be concussing for your teammates. You should be flashing for your teammates. You should use Aftershock to flush people out for your teammates so that your teammates can capitalize off of that. So I really agree with what a lot of Hiko said here. The reason why I showed Hiko last is because his is actually the most outdated. I don't want to say outdated because I still feel like his tier list is pretty prevalent. However, it still is from when Reyna was initially brought into the game. So it doesn't involve Killjoy. Neither does one from Pro Guides. Nobody's done a tier list with Killjoy in it yet. Leave a comment below if you think that I should do a tier list, or my personal tier list right now that has Killjoy in it. So I'm going to go into some clips right now to showcase some of the things that I think are really good, especially with what Hiko said, that Breach is really good at stopping rushes. That's the first thing I'm going to showcase.
Cypher and Phoenix B.
Enemy spotted.
Oh. Oh, it was a fake! It's a fake! It's a fake! It's a fake!
Blasting!
Denied the plant.
Let's go!
Denied the plant a second time.
Nice, him! Nice!
One enemy remaining.
Enemy spotted. That's a lot of them.
And right there is why Hiko and myself think that Breach is really good. Like, just that right there, if I was any other agent, we probably would have lost that round. Just my straight up ability to stop 3 people, I think it was, 3 people in their tracks single-handedly by myself and secure that round for us is so strong and so important. I'm gonna go over another couple matches from a different, or a couple rounds, my bad, different couple rounds from a different match that also showcases Breach's usefulness to supporting as a team rather than individual play. Now real quick, I want you guys to pay attention to my minimap during this clip and see how I react as I start getting intel. Now mind you, I was not receiving any information vocally from our Raze. So this is where game sense and game
Nice
awareness
try,
comes
Jet.
in. And this is what you really need to have a lot of in order to play Breach. So watch this. I saw the Rainalier and then I used my concussion, and that
Jet's chilled
slows
after
the
that.
push that is coming from
She went with that super
short.
aggressive push to the smoke, trying to stewie me, but
I'm just gonna let you guys watch what
'cause I'm a
happens
retard
throughout
myself
the
and I
rest
do
of this
things like
round.
that.
I don't get any kills directly. However, I indirectly assist with, I think, I think 3. I think it was 3. We'll see.
Enemy spotted.
Blinding.
Peeking mid.
Enemy spotted. Nailed it.
Soon open. I'm pushing.
Enemy spotted.
One enemy remaining.
For me.
30 seconds left.
Here.
Flash out.
Not so tough after all. What do they think this is? A backyard scrimmage?
So we're gonna pause it here real quick, and as you can see that from the first concussion, I think it's in order of how I use the abilities. So the first concussion stunned one person that was pushing down A short. Now I promised that whoever got stunned did not keep pushing up. So right there delayed the push, right? And then Aftershock also displaced somebody while they were in a gunfight, which either indirectly saved my teammate's life or just delayed the push even further, because who would have known? My teammate could have killed them for all I know. The flash that I shot through there as well flashed 2 people that were in A short, which also bought some time because you're not going to keep pushing when you're flashed. And then I tried to assist with the second concussion. Sadly, that didn't get anyone. But if it did get someone, it still would have assisted with getting that kill. And maybe it displaced them and the game didn't count it. I don't know. But I still tried to concuss the Omen from where I was at. It could have reached. I could have hit it. But I didn't, sadly. And then lastly, I flashed again down A short, which made Reyna not want to push me. And then my teammate who was flanking behind him then killed him. That entire match, or not match, that entire round, I had really, really high impactful utility usage with Breach, all without ever having to be in a gunfight, all without ever playing off of my own utility, but using my utility in a way that would allow my teammates to utilize that utility. And that's what I'm really getting at, is Breach's playstyle, I don't think is intended for him to be self-sufficient. Brother has said himself that at lower MMR, so I want to say from like gold 1 and below, that Breach is not going to be a good agent, right? That Breach is going to shine, or should shine, at the higher levels of play. So I think anywhere between Plat 3 to Diamond to Immortal, and at Radiant. And that's because their intended design for him was for him to be a team player. That's all I really wanted to say about Breach. If you like the content, please like and sub. Let me know what you think about Breach in the comments below. Do you think that I'm overrating him, or do you agree with me and think that he's actually underrated? I would really look forward to seeing your opinions on that. With that being said, my name's Dissident, and I'll see you guys later.